Lionel ZINSOU, you are the chairman of PAI, which is a private equity company, with, I think, a particular interest in Africa. Now, it seems to me that lots of private equity firms look to Asia. Why are you looking to Africa?
Good morning. First, I wanted to tell you, PAI is French and invests essentially in Europe. Africa is a new frontier for PAI. In the portfolio, we have many companies with broad interests in Africa. For instance, we work in medical labs in Africa. We're number one in South Africa and Northern Africa. We work on airport handling in Nairobi, in Cairo, in South Africa again. So our portfolio companies are very much involved in Africa, and more, like, I mean, every global company today is interested in Africa. As a fund, we will make direct investments going forward tomorrow. For the time being, it's more indirect. Why Africa is of interest compared to Asia? All the big global companies have gone to Asia already, and they look for new territories, new potential growth. And it's now clear, it's recent, but it's now clear that Africa will be, in terms of growth for the coming sort of 20, 30 years, because of the demographic growth and because of a better governance, because of a better pricing of the raw materials in a scarcity environment. Africa will be a land of growth. So everybody now is focusing on Africa.
So when people talk about the 21st century as the century of Asia, it could actually be the century of Africa. I mean, if you look, 2050, for example.
No, it's not exclusive. What it will not be is a century for the old world, probably.
That's but Europe and America will not be
but that. Take the Asian-African relationship. It's so clear that Asia has reinvented Africa in a sense. One of the reasons why Europeans are more and more interested in Africa today is that Asia has come first, in a sense. India, China, South Korea now are really reinventing their trade relationships and investment relationships with Africa.
Demand for raw materials, or is it a broader interest?
China, it's quite raw material focused, and especially hydrocarbons, minerals, and agricultural stuff, but more industrial agricultural, sort of cotton imports, more than food-related objectives. And China has not yet considered Africa as a very interesting market. So the trade balance of Africa is the only one which is positive in surplus vis-à-vis China. It's the only continent in a surplus vis-à-vis China because of this sort of imbalance.
Sure.
We want your raw materials. We do not consider that you are, today, our priority market. If you take now other emerging countries, India, South Korea, it's massively imports to Africa. All the Samsung sort of electronic, typical Korean exports, or transport materials. You see all the Tata bus and lorries and so on of India. So it's far broader, and same in terms of imports coming from Africa. So depends a bit. A country which is very interesting to follow and was important here in the conference is Turkey, for instance. Something that nobody really reads in the statistics is that Turkey is now importing in Africa more manufactured goods than China to Africa. And the rise of Turkey is another example of those emerging countries interacting with Africa. As you know, you could say the same with Brazil, going up strongly. So in a sense, I don't know if it will be the century of Africa. It will be the century of all those countries, new countries, emerging countries, developing countries, interacting with each other.
Lionel ZINSOU, do you think that, in a sense, Europe is missing an opportunity in Africa?
Yes, definitely. Europe has probably a bit of a colonial complex relationship with Africa, inherited of the recent past. But I mean, the colonial phenomenon has not been that long. It has been what? It has been since formally 60 years. Yeah. And now we are around 50 to 60 years of independence now. So it's something which is far behind. But it's true that Africa looks at emerging countries as being the new role model. Somebody said in this conference, you can now modernize without westernizing.
I think, yes. Kishore Mahbubani, very
absolutely.
Good point. Yes.
And explaining that it was the way Asia was looking at its modernizing process. Yeah. It's exactly the same in Africa. You have not anymore to Europeanize or westernize, even if you are fully culturally in the common law or the Roman law and so on and so forth. You can find your own ways following totally different models. So Europe has to make a sort of effort if Europe wants to match with those opportunities of growth. You know that Bob Geldof, Sir Bob Geldof, has created a fund, private equity fund, for the development of Africa called 7 Mile, because you have only 7 mile nautical miles from Spain to Morocco. Yes. My feeling is that now it becomes to be sort of 700 miles in the mines, even if it's 7 mile in geography, and if
or even sometimes 7,000.
Yeah, and exactly, because it's so cheaper to go from our Western African coast to Shanghai than to go back to Europe, and so on. You have some realities which, in effect, create a larger gap. So, if we want to catch up, I think it's very important that Europe understands the new Africa, and it's a chance for Europe, a chance of growth.
Lionel ZINSOU, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.